It's a supply chain bomb that could cripple the U.S. auto industry.
China is going to restrict that. And the two particular metals we're talking about are gallium and germanium, which, by the way, China kind of dominates production.
Critical metals for chips and batteries abruptly cut off. Is this the end of affordable EVs as we know them? These boring-sounding elements like gallium and germanium make the high-tech guts of modern cars.
Putting export controls on germanium and gallium, and this could just be the beginning of more restrictions on other critical raw materials.
And China controls over 80% of their production. By slashing exports, China just made the global supply chain its newest hostage.
But if it drags on for over a year, the chances of prices shooting up are high.
The fallout could be massive across the auto industry. But here's where things get really interesting. This is the kind of idea that makes you super curious, something not usually seen in Latin America, especially in the world of cars. In a place where money troubles and tough situations often make cars a challenge, this idea is different because it's affordable. It's like getting more stuff without spending a lot, which isn't something you usually hear about cars in Latin America. You know, the phrase more for less doesn't usually fit with the cars you find here. It's like trying to touch something you can't really touch, an idea that's been missing for a long time. I haven't been to a car event in a while that made me feel this hopeful. And speaking of hope, my dear viewers, let's think about the bigger picture. What's been happening between China and the US? Now, about the recent things happening between China and the United States. Let's talk a bit about the world in politics. You often see in movies and on the news that China and the US are acting like enemies in a big Cold War, with the possibility of a nuclear fight. But that's not really true.
The Pentagon believes the Chinese were not only trying to watch the U.S., but listen too.
The real story is that the United States buys a lot of stuff from China, and China gives the US a lot of things too. They're so connected in terms of money that thinking about them going to war is like thinking about a huge financial disaster. It's something that doesn't make sense for either of them.
Market distortions and the way they deal cannot be tolerated. A tremendous intellectual property theft.
Basically, the connection between these two really big markets is way more complicated and peaceful than what you might hear in the news. It's a reality where they're tied together by money and trade, and where they're stronger when they work together instead of fighting. In the midst of all this drama, a craftier game is afoot. This ongoing spectacle feels like a strategic plot to twist prices across the board, from real estate to precious commodities. It's like they're spinning a web to give both American and Chinese companies a leg up. But hey, don't fall for the smoke and mirrors. Behind the scenes, their economies are doing a tango that's downright symbiotic. When one shines, the other gets a spotlight too. When China offers deals that are too good to be true, the US gets to shop smart. If China starts playing hardball with prices, the US just places bigger orders. The magic here is in their tag team success. It's like a masterclass in cooperative economics. So, what's the grand scheme, you ask? Well, enter Tesla onto the stage. They're getting ready to make their own stuff. But here's the twist. China wants to do a disappearing act with some key metals like gallium and germanium.
The U.S. is insistent that China is a threat. They're trying to contain it. They're saying we're not going to let you have, quote, our technology. But it's not just U.S. technology.
These metals are like the VIP passes to battery and high-tech chip production. But behind the scenes, it's a showdown for fairness. Accusations are flying, and Tesla's eyeing up Mexico's iron-rich Sonoran Desert to build their battery factories. Because Mexico's stepping up as the new big shot in lithium production. Mexico's all set to flex its lithium muscles, rewriting the playbook in global industry dynamics. But hold on, the Chinese have their cards in play too. They're hinting at a buying boycott, adding a spicy twist to the dance of dollars and international power moves. Mexico's rising influence, cozying up to the United States, might need a second look. While the idea of a tight friendship is tempting, my amigos from Mexico, there's a twist to ponder. Your connection with the US, though friendly, might not be as solid as it appears. If we dissect the politics and money matters, it seems like you're leaning more their way than the other way around.
Volkswagen said that these two materials are important for the future of autonomous driving.
Let's dive into the world of microchips for a juicy example. Get ready for a mind-blowing fact. Some of the biggest microchip makers are from China. And guess what? They're boosted by American investments. And even the ones not directly from China, many are Korean companies that also have American money behind them. Now, imagine this scenario. A brand new microchip factory pops up in North America with a lot of American muscle behind it. Suddenly, there's way more competition in the microchip world. And you know what happens when there's a lot of competition? Prices drop. So the mighty microchip, once a superstar of technology and value, starts to lose its shine. Its worth goes down, and it's not a big deal as it used to be.
Chip-making machines as a sign that the United States wants to contain China and prevent its rise, prevent it from economic.
This, my friends, is how markets work. It's like a dance where power and influence can totally change things up. Presently, it's becoming commonplace to witness an abundance of supply in the market. This development leads to a logical outcome. Chinese companies backed by American investments will find themselves facing lower profits. Why? Because they'll need to reduce prices for their microchips, dictated by their colossal American investors. The crux of the matter is that these American investors don't want their Chinese microchip ventures to falter. They don't want a new American microchip industry to arise, one that might be driven by fresh players within the automotive sector. Here's the truth that might ruffle feathers. Entrepreneurs, for the most part, don't relish competition. Anyone who claims competition is a wonderful, healthy phenomenon is either misinformed or intentionally misleading. Sure, competition might benefit the consumer, but it doesn't align with a businessman's profit aspirations. The truth is, entrepreneurs would rather steer clear of competition, as it threatens their pockets. They'd rather restrict supply, manipulate markets, and maintain their position of power. This is why we witness the convenient restriction of gallium and germanium by Chinese companies, seemingly establishing themselves in the United States. Keep in mind that the capital, whether American or Chinese, has its roots in China. It's where they reap the greatest profits, regardless of nationality. These entities don't intend to keep a robust microchip industry in the US, despite their rhetoric. Instead, they utilize a narrative that paints the Chinese as disloyal cheaters, a diversion from the actual dynamics at play. The real deal is clear. The Chinese need to put limits on what American companies can buy. These limits help them out, making sure things stay balanced according to their money plans. But let's think about what's coming in the car world. It's pretty likely that the Chinese will have to loosen up on those limits as time goes on. And that means they'll end up selling the stuff they didn't want to let go of in the beginning. Now, what do I think will happen next? Well, that's a story for another day, and I'm super curious to know what you think. Drop your thoughts in the comments section below.